whoever is reading, just remember everyone to keep yourselves muted when the person is reading. Okay, so, but once I call on each person to read, you guys can unmute yourself from your end. Let's see here.
What are we reading?
We're going to be reading a Torah portion today, so I'll be calling on each person to read a certain portion of scripture. But I'll be starting us off in Genesis 23, and I'll be reading the first couple chapters of our Torah portion today. So it'll be Genesis 23 to 25, verse 18.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're about to be live here. We are live. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug. I am with the Awakened by Yahuwah Fellowship Assembly in Yahuwah Almighty Yahushua Messiah. Today we are going to be doing, we're going to be continuing our Torah portion. So let's see here. Okay, we are going to be going to Genesis 23, 1 to chapter 25, 18. Okay, so let's see here. I got my Septuagint here I'm going to be reading from, and I think I'll use one of my Targums here to read side by side. Hold on a second. Just where I had the other Targum that I want to use. Let's see where I put it. Let's see here. All right, here we go. Here's the Jerusalem. Here's Jonathan one. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to use the Targum of Jonathan side by side with my Lex Ham English Septuagint. Okay. All right, here we go. So we're starting at Genesis 23. Okay. Here we go. Genesis 23. And actually, let me remind myself to also all right.
Did you say Genesis 23?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Affirmative. Yep.
I thought we were further. Are you doing Torah portions or just a study bit?
Torah portions. Yeah. Torah portions today. Yeah. We're going to go through Genesis, then First Kings, and then so on and so forth. So it's the list I sent the group last night. The Genesis 23 to 25, then First Kings chapter 1, Judges 12 to 21, Psalms 43 to 51. That whole list I gave yesterday at 5 p.m. my time. That's the whole haftarah for today. So yeah, we'll be starting off at Genesis 23. I'll be reading Genesis 23 to 25 for the Torah part of it. So
I'm sorry, I didn't write those. I didn't write those down because I'm looking for my head covering.
Oh, it's okay, sis. No problem. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. You don't have to write them down. It's not a mandatory thing.
Oh, I found it. Oh, yay. Okay.
Cool. All right. Here we go. Genesis 23. The life of Sarah was 127 years old, and Sarah died in the city of Arabah, which is in the lowland. This is Hebron in the land of Canaan. Abraham went to grieve Sarah and to mourn, and Abraham rose up from his dead body, and Abraham spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am an alien. Notice how alien just means stranger here, okay? It's all the word used, that basically originally the word alien just meant someone that's a stranger in another land. Okay, a sojourner among you. So give me a property for a grave among you, so I can bury my dead here. There. The sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying, No, master, hear us. You are a king from a Elohim among us. That's interesting. Bury your dead body in your finest tombs. For none of us will withhold his tomb from you to bury your dead body there. Abraham got up and bowed to the people of the land, sons of Heth, and Abraham spoke to them, saying, If you have it in your life that I might bury my dead body away from my face, listen to me and speak to Ephron, the son of Zohar, on my behalf. And may he give me the double cave, which is his, the one which is part of his field. For the silver it is worth, may he give it to me for a property as a tomb among you. Ephron was seated among the sons of Heth, replying to Abraham. Ephron the Hittite, notice he's a Hittite, and that's going to be important moving forward to know Ephron's a Hittite. Okay. While the sons of Heth and all those entering into the city were listening, saying, Be present with me, master, and hear me. The field and the cave that is in it I give to you in front of my fellow citizens. I have given it to you. Bury your dead body. And Abraham bowed before the people of the land and said to Ephron in the hearing of all the people of the land, Since you are before me, hear me. Take the silver for the field from me and bury my dead body there. Ephron replied to Abraham, saying, No, master, for I have heard value is 400 didrachmas of silver between me and you. What is it? You now bury your dead. And Abraham heard Ephron, and Abraham delivered for Ephron the silver that he spoke about in the ears of the sons of Heth. 400 didrachmas of silver approved for merchants, and there stood in the field of Ephron, which was at the double cave, whose face is toward Mamre, the field and the cave, which was in it, and every tree which was in the field, which is in its boundaries round about, for Abraham as a property before the sons of Heth and all who were entering into the city. After these things, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the double cave of the field, which is opposite Mamre. This is Hebron in the land of Canaan. Yea. And the field and the cave that was in it were established for Abraham as property for a grave from the sons of Heth. So that's the end of chapter 23. Okay, before I get going on chapter 24, I would like to just make a mention that I find it kind of interesting. Abraham, it's a righteous thing for Abraham to actually to make a quote unquote agreement with a Hittite. Okay. So to me, in my mind anyway, this proves that later on, when the Israelites get into the land of Canaan, the Hittites are one of the tribes they're not to make any covenants with, right? So to me, this proves that a covenant is just not a verbal agreement. To me, that this proves that a covenant is much more than a verbal agreement, because right here they're giving each other a verbal agreement for Abraham to buy a plot for his wife from Ephron the Hittite. And they're doing a verbal agreement with witnesses, actually. So just saying. Let's see here. And actually, if you look historically in those days in the land of Canaan, I don't want to get up too much on another topic, but in those days, when you made covenants with people, it had to do with peace treaties. It was a specific type of covenant that it's referring to when you get into the book of Deuteronomy and other places where it says, do not make covenants with the inhabitants of the land. Okay, it's very specific historically what covenants they're talking about. Okay. And what type of covenant Yahuwah commanded his people not to make with them. So anyway. So let's see here. So I just want to see if there's anything different in the Targum here that maybe brings anything out. I know for the most part it's probably going to be the same here in chapter 23. Okay, just skimming through here. Okay, all right, from the Mount of Worship, verse 2. Okay, not much different. Okay, tend to us, our master. Okay. All right, this is interesting. Instead of a mighty one, verse 6 says, great before Yahuwah you are. Interesting. So they would have somehow known Yahuwah's name and known who Yahuwah was. Other than that, I don't see much of a difference, so we can move on to chapter 24. But little differences I see here. Okay, so, all right. Yeah, we'll start off with chapter 24 now. Okay, Genesis 24. And Abraham was old, advanced in days, and Yahuwah Baruch Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his house was overseer of all things, put your hand under my loin, and I will make you swear by Yahuwah, the Elohim of the heavens and of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son Isaac from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live. But you shall go to my land where I was born, and to my tribe, and you shall take a wife for my son Isaac from there. The servant said to him, perhaps the woman is not willing to go with me back to this land. Will I bring back your son to the land from where you came from? Abraham said to him, take care for yourself that you not return my son there. Yahuwah, the Elohim of the heavens and the Elohim of the earth, who took me from the house of my father and from the land where I was born, who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, I will give this land to you and your offspring. He himself will send his angel before you, and you will take a wife for my son Isaac from there. If the woman does not will to go with you to this land, you will be released from this oath, only you may not return my son there. Okay, so far, let's see. So far we got the promise to find Isaac a son. So Abraham is sending his servant to find a wife for his son Isaac. Okay, let's see here. So the servant placed his hand under the loin of Abraham, his master, and swore to him regarding the matter. And the servant took 10 camels and the camels of his master from all the possessions of his master with him, and got up and went to Mesopotamia, which basically is a modern title for the area of Shinar, Babylon. To the city of Nahor, and he rested the camels outside the city beside the well of water toward sunset. When the water fetchers go out, and he said, O Yahuwah, Elohim of my master, Abraham, prosper my way before me today, and show mercy to my master Abraham. Look, I have stood at the water spring, and the daughters of the city of the inhabitants come out to draw water. And it shall be, whichever maiden to whom I say, incline your pitcher, so I may drink, and she says to me, do drink, and I will water your camels until they stop drinking. You have prepared this one for your servant Isaac. By this I will show that you have shown mercy to my master Abraham. And this happened before he had finished speaking in his mind. Look, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, and the brother of Abraham, was coming out, carrying the pitcher of her shoulders. The maiden was very beautiful in appearance. She was a virgin. A man had not known her. Going down to the spring, she filled her pitcher and went up. The servant ran up to meet her and said, give me a little water to drink from your pitcher. So she said, drink, sir. And she hurried and lowered the pitcher on her arm and gave him a drink until he stopped drinking. And she said, I will fetch water for your camels too until they have all drunk. And she hurried and emptied the pitcher upon the water trough, and she ran to the well to draw water, and she fetched water for all the camels. The man was watching her and stayed silent to ascertain whether Yahuwah had prospered his journey or not. It happened when all the camels ceased drinking. The man took golden earrings, each a drachma in weight, and 2 armlets on her arms. Their weight was 10 gold pieces. And he asked her and said, Daughter, whose are you? Tell me if there is a place for us to lodge with your father. And she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. And she said to him, With us there is both straw and much fodder, and a place to lodge. And being content, the man worshipped Yahuwah and said, Baruch be Yahuwah, Elohim of my master Abraham, who has not abstained from righteousness and truth toward my master. Yahuwah helped me on the way to the house of my master kinsman. And after running off, the girl reported to the house of her mother concerning these matters. Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, and Laban ran to the man outside at the spring. And this happened when he saw the earrings and armlets of the arms of his sister, when he heard the words of Rebekah, his sister, saying, The man spoke to me like this. Then he went to the man while he stood by the camels at the spring, and he said to him, Come, enter. Baruch be Yahuwah. Why are you standing outside? I have prepared the house and a place for the camels. The man came into the house and unpacked the camels and gave the camels straw and fodder and water for his feet and the feet of the men with him. And he served him bread to eat. And he said, I will not eat until I have spoken my words. And they said, Speak. And he said, I am the servant of Abraham. Yahuwah has Baruch my master greatly and has been elevated, and he has given him sheep and calves and silver and gold, servants and maids and camels and donkeys. And Sarah, the wife of my master, bore one son for my master after he had grown old. And he has given him everything he owns. And my master made me swear, saying, You shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I am living in their land. Rather, you should go to the house of my father and to my tribe and take a woman for my son from there. I said to my master, Perhaps the woman does not want to go with me. And he said to me, Yahuwah Elohim, whom I pleased in his presence, he himself will send out his angel with you, and you will make your journey successful. And you will take a woman for my son from my tribe and from my father's house. Then you will be free from my vow. For if you come to my tribe, they do not give to you, then you will be free from my oath. And coming today to the spring, I said, Yahuwah, Elohim of my master Abraham, if you prosper my journey, which I am now going on, look, I stand near the spring of water, and the daughters of the people of the city will come out to draw water. And may it be that whichever maiden to whom I shall say, Give me a little water to drink from your pitcher, and she says to me, you drink, and I will fetch water for your camel. This woman whom Yahuwah prepared for his attendant Isaac, and by this I will know that you have shown mercy to my master Abraham. And this happened before I finished speaking in my mind. At once Rebekah was going out, holding the pitcher on her shoulder, and she came to the spring and fetched water. And I said to her, Give me a drink. And hurrying, she lowered the pitcher on her arm from herself and said, You drink, and I will water your camels. And I drank, and she watered my camels. And I asked her and said, Whose daughter are you? Tell me. She declared, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him. And I put on her earrings and the armlets on her arms. And being content, I worshipped Yahuwah and Baruch Yahuwah, the Elohim of my master Abraham, who helped me on the correct road to take the daughter of my master's brother for his son. Then you are showing mercy and righteousness to my master. Tell me so I can turn to the right, or to the left. Answering, Laban and Bethuel said, This ordinance came forth from Yahuwah, therefore we will not be able to oppose you bad for good. Look, Rebekah's in front of you. Having received her, leave and let her be a wife to the son of your master. Just as Yahuwah said, it happened when the servant of Abraham heard their words. He prostrated himself on the earth to Yahuwah, and having brought out silver and gold vessels and clothing, the servant gave them to Rebekah, and he gave gifts to her brothers and her mother. And they ate and drank, and he and the men who were with him, and they went to sleep. And having risen in the morning, he said, Send me away in order that I may depart to my master. Her brothers and mother said, Let the maiden remain with us about 10 days, and after this she will depart. But he said to them, Do not hold me back now. Yahuwah prospered my journey, dispatch me in order that I may depart to my master. But they said, Let us call the girl and ask her directly. And they summoned Rebekah and said to her, Will you go with this man? And she said, I will go. So they sent out Rebekah, their sister, and her possessions, and the servant of Abraham, and those with him. And they baruched Rebekah, their sister, and said to her, You are our sister, become thousands of myriads. Let your offspring inherit the cities of their enemies. After arising, Rebekah and her companions get up on the camels, and they went with the person, and taking along Rebekah, the servant departed. Now Isaac was going through the wilderness in the region of the well of vision. He was dwelling in the land that is to the south. And Isaac came out to chat in the plain toward the evening, or toward sunset, and looking up with his eyes, he saw camels coming. And when she looked up with her eyes, Rebekah saw Isaac and leaped down from the camel. And she said to the servant, Who is that person who is coming on the plain to meet us? The servant said, This is my master. She, taking her veil, covered herself. So you see how it's talking about a veil here. Okay. And the servant described to Isaac all the matters that he accomplished. Isaac entered into the house of his mother and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted concerning Sarah, his mother. Okay. So he entered the dwelling place of his mother and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. So, wow, there's a lot in this chapter. We got the angel of Yahuwah seemingly hinted at when it talks about Yahuwah would send his angel to guide the servant of Abraham to get a wife for Isaac. Obviously, we have the importance here of the not marrying. It seems like, from what the way I would read it, is that under no circumstances is he to marry a Canaanite woman. There's probably many reasons for that, but the script, as far as we know, for scriptural answers, we can say Ham was cursed, number one, all the way back from Genesis, I think 7. I'm thinking. Okay, so Ham's whole line would have been cursed, and especially since Yahuwah's descendant was going to dispossess his descendants from the land, that would be another reason he wouldn't want them to basically intermarry, for Abraham's descendants to intermarry with the Canaanites, Girgashites, Hittites, and so on. Just the fact that they're cursed and they were supposed to be, and they're pagans, there's many reasons there that we'll see later on scripturally. The idolatry is spoken about a lot. Anyway, so I do have another theory, but it's more than a theory, so I'm not going to mention it anymore. I'm not going to preach it as doctrine until I can prove it. Why they are under no conditions there to marry the Canaanites, Girgashites, Hittites, Jebusites, and so on. So anyway, so I think chapter 24 was pretty much substandard. I don't think I saw many differences here when I was reading this side by side. I didn't notice that verse 1 says the word of Yahuwah in the Targum of Jonathan. That was a main difference. And also in verse 3, the word of Yahuwah Elohim. Other than that, I think it was pretty much substandard. I think we can go and read chapter 25. Yeah, there's not much different there. Okay, so chapter 25, and I'm only going to be reading to verse 15 because then we're going to the second part of our Haftarah reading today. So let's see here. Okay, all right, so let me just check to make sure it is. Yep, actually it's verse 18, so I'll read up to verse 18. Okay, here we go. Genesis 25, 18. Abraham added and took, Abraham added and took a woman whose name was Keturah, so meaning he added a wife, a woman. Sometimes in the Hebrew and Greek languages, just to explain, the same word for wife is woman. So don't get too confused when you just see the word woman. It's pretty much, it's one and the same. Tomato, Okay. She bore to him Zimran and Yoksan and Medan and Midian and Ishbak and Shua. Yokshan fathered Sheba and Taman and Dedan. The sons of Dedan were Ragul and Adbiel and Ashurim and Letushim and Leumim. That's interesting. Okay. The sons of Midian were Ephon, Epher, and Enoch, and Abida, and Tergama. These are all the sons of Keturah. Abraham gave all his possessions to Isaac, his son, and Abraham gave gifts to the sons of his concubines, and he sent them away from Isaac. Interesting. His son, while he was still living toward the east of the land of the east. That's interesting. These are the years of the days of the life of Abraham, that he lived 175 years, and Abraham ceased and died at a good old age, an old man and full of days, and he was added to his people, and Isaac and Ishmael, his two sons, buried him in the double cave in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, which is opposite Mamre, the field and the cave that Abraham acquired from the sons of Heth. There they buried Abraham and Sarah, his wife. It happened after Abraham died. Elohim, Baruch Isaac, his son, and Isaac settled beside the well of vision. These are the genealogies of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, who Hagar, the maid of Sarah, bore to Abraham, and these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, according to the name of his generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nabaioth, and Kedar, and Abdil, and Mibzam, and Mishma, and Duma, and Masa, and Hadad, and Teman, and Yatur, and Naphish, and Kedama. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, and their tents, and in their villages, 12 rulers according to their nations, or their ethnoses. Okay. All right. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and ceasing he died and was added to his family. He lived from Havilah up to Shur, which is facing Egypt, until he came to the Assyrians. He lived facing all his brothers. Now that's interesting. So he went to Assyria. And these are the generations of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham fathered Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramaean, a Mesopotamian. That's interesting. She was an Aramaean. The sister of Laban, the Aramaean, for himself as a wife. Isaac asked Yahuwah about Rebekah, his wife, because she was barren. Elohim heard him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. The children were leaping within her, and she said, if it is going to be this way for me, why is this happening to me? She went to inquire from Yahuwah, and Yahuwah said to her, two nations. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I went through the whole thing. My bad. Oh, well, might as well finish it. Two nations are in your belly, and two peoples from your belly will be separated, and a people will be better than a people, meaning one is going to be a greater people from the two boys. I really don't like that translation. All right. And the greater will serve the younger. Okay. And the days for her to give birth were completed. And here there were twins in the womb. The firstborn son came out red, entirely like a hairy hide. She called his name Esau. And after this, his brother came out, and his hand was gripping the heel of Esau. She called his name Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old, brought them forth. The boys grew up, and Esau was an outdoor person who knew how to hunt. Jacob was a simple person living at home. Isaac loved Esau because his hunting was meat for him. Rebekah loved Jacob, so we see partiality starting here. Jacob boiled stew, and Esau came from the field empty-handed. And Esau said to Jacob, give me a taste from this red stew, because I am empty-handed. Because of this, his name was called Edom. Jacob said to Esau, give me today your birthright for me. Esau said, look, I am going to die, so what good are these birthrights to me? And Jacob said to him, swear to me today. And he swore to him, and Esau gave his birthrights to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and ate and drank. Having stood up, he departed. So Esau despised his birthright. And that is it. So that's the end for today's Torah portion. We're going to be going to the prophets now with 1 Samuel, I believe, or 1 Kings, actually. So we're going to be going to the book of Kings next. Yeah, 1 Kings chapter 1. So I would like to mention, in my opinion, I think this is why Yahuwah hates Esau, why that says in Malachi, for Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. I think the reason Yahuwah says that is because what happened here in chapter 25 of Genesis, because Esau hated his birthright, and that caused Yahuwah to hate him. And let me just see before we move on here. I want to see if there's anything huge jumping out at me. I do find it interesting. Esau was a hunter, like he was probably like an archer, kind of like Nimrod. So I find that kind of interesting. Let's see here. So other than that, I don't assume here to see any other differences. Other than that, though, let's see here. Yeah, not much differences here. Let's see here. Verse 23, I thought was different in Targum Jonathan. It says, the younger will keep the commandments of the law. So I'm assuming the younger is Jacob. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. That's something to take note about the prophecy there. Okay. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. There wasn't much differences, really. I was very surprised. Usually the Targum Jonathan has a lot of extra info, but I guess not. All right. Anyway, moving on. Mom, you think you could read 1 Kings chapter 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can we add any bullets or no, not anymore?
Can we what?
Add any? I had a couple of thoughts. So I wanted you to
If it pertains to
yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
funny
if it
how
pertains,
yes, to this. Yeah, I had raised my hand on the first chapter, but you hadn't seen it. So I was really, there must be something about the water pitcher. What is that? Like a woman, because he said pick out a woman, from like the water pitcher, right? Or doing something with the water, right? So I'm just thinking there's got to be some kind of connection to that, and what women's role was to, go and draw the water. I mean, that's pretty physically fit for sure. Be you know watering that many camels. And then my other thing, I'll give you three, then you can look at them. And then I noticed it here in the King James on 23. He said, "Beware that you don't go and pick a wife from here," or beware. He didn't. Abraham didn't want his servant to either pick a woman from the Canaanites, or even that he would not go back to his land. And I'm thinking, wow, what is all that? There's little reasonings why. And then the next one would be the tribes. Okay, so when he says your tribe, does that mean that they're just like, those are the McCoys, these are this? But did they all speak the same? Were they different in any way, shape, or form? Like, did they believe certain? Did they do something different? Was there sheep tenders? Was there in these tribes? Like, for example, I have my brother that's left, and he has his family. That means that were they all honoring Yahuwah at that point, and they continue to honor Yahuwah, I'd imagine, because of the story of Joseph. But I just never took it to heart, the word tribe, like I hear it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your tribe, their tribes. There's 12 tribes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, not at this point. Not at this point. There's not 12 tribes yet. You got to remember too. We're still in Abraham's story. We're not at Jacob yet. So we just got to the pretty much the birth of Jacob and Esau. So we're not even up to the 12 sons that come from Jacob yet. So right now, when he's talking about your tribe in context, he's talking about your ethnicity. There was a certain time in Genesis before the law of Moses where you would have to actually have to keep it in the family, so to speak. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Incest is all over the scriptures, guys. If you have a problem with it, I don't know what to tell you. So it's there for a reason. I have theories why they had to keep it in one specific family, and like I said, I don't want to go into the whole gene pool theory, but a genetic problem after the flood, but I don't want to go into that until I can prove it. Like I said before, I don't want to put forth my opinions as doctrine. So all I'm going to say is that I believe there's a reason for that, in my opinion. There's a reason they had to stick to one family for a certain amount of time until the law of Moses came, and then it changed. Possibly, too, because they're the only worshipers of Yahuwah, like you mentioned, Sister Sadia. It's very possible that the lineage of Shem was the only lineage from Noah's sons that would have kept true to the worship of Yahuwah. I have no proof to say that the Egyptians would have been worshiping Yahuwah at that point. We don't have the mixed multitude yet, so most of the Egyptians would have been, not worshiping Yahuwah. Other ethnicities you got to realize too, at the Tower of Babel, which we can actually prove this, it seems like the majority of the ethnoses at the Tower of Babel did not choose Yahuwah, because Yahuwah actually puts angels over them and only takes Jacob for himself. So, and this seems to be a plan Yahuwah already has in place at the Tower of Babel, that he's going to start over with one lineage, and people are going to have to get grafted in spiritually to the lineage of Jacob. Deuteronomy 32, 8-9 in the Septuagint says, when the Most High divided the nations, Tower of Babel, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the nations, meaning those nations that are not Jacob, according to the number of the angels of Elohim. Okay, so that means he's got principalities over every heathen nation, pretty much. And his people, Jacob, became the portion of Yahuwah. Israel was the line of his inheritance. So another problem too, I think, with the intermarrying is now you're basically marrying. If he was to marry Canaanites, he would be tempted to worship their mighty ones that they were under after the Tower of Babel, and like Brother Jeff said last Shabbat. So there's definitely, we can find scriptural proof about the idolatry problem if they intermarry, and the curse that came from Ham. So I mean, basically, Yahuwah is later planning to utterly obliterate every descendant of the Canaanites, of Canaan's lineage, not just the Canaanites, but the Hittites, Girgashites. And obviously, if he's going to plan to obliterate them, it would kind of be counterproductive, I would think, too, to intermarry with them if he's planning to completely commit genocide against those heathen tribes and those giant tribes. So it would be completely counterproductive for I think that's the sense of urgency, in my opinion, anyway. The curse, I would say, and the idolatry problem. That would be the two main big points of why Abraham is like urging Isaac, don't marry one of the daughters of the Canaanites. And you'll see this is not the first time. You'll see multiple times in Genesis, way before that commandment in Deuteronomy, they're being told, do not marry into them, do not marry into them. When Esau goes to try to kill Jacob, you'll see later on there his mother is crying just over the thought that he might intermarry with the Canaanites, practically. So anyway, so
Wow. And
yeah,
okay, so here's the other thought. The other one is, isn't it, I mean, our walk compared to Abraham's walk, okay, is so different because Abraham spoke that there would be an angel there. There would go an angel before, right? So I mean,
Yahuwah spoke to Abraham's servant. So Yahuwah in person spoke actually to Abraham's slave, his
isn't
servant.
that amazing?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
okay,
So there is a different relationship.
Yeah. Should we be walking in that? Shouldn't we be really tuning in to Yahuwah, because he has his angel, his malak. We have a malak that's assigned to us to, I don't know all the jobs that the malak does, but it's just like so powerful that he would, hear that and say, don't worry, there will be a one that will go before you, and he will, lead you to the right woman, right?
Yeah, I believe.
So I just kind of thought I'd point that out there. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. I just wanted you to expound on that, because I think that we're not walking in that fullness sometimes, and there's power in that, and it's just trusting in Yahuwah, that we could tune in that deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Hallelujah, sis. Yep. Go ahead, Mom. We're gonna start 1 Kings, everyone. So my mom's gonna read 1 Kings chapter 1.
Okay. When King David was old and well advanced in years, he could not keep warm, even when they put covers over him. So his servants said to him, let us look for a young virgin to attend the king and take care of him. She can lie beside him so that our lord the king may keep warm. Then they searched throughout Israel for a beautiful girl and found Abishag, a Shumanite, and brought her to the king. The girl was very beautiful. She took care of the king and waited on him. But the king had no intimate relationship with her. Though Adonijah, whose mother was Haggith, put himself forward and said, I will be king. So he got chariots and horses ready with 50 men to run ahead of him. His father had never interfered with him by asking, why do you behave as you do? He was also very handsome and was born next after Absalom. Adonijah conferred with Joab, son of Zeruiah, and with the Abiathar the priest, and they gave him their support. But Zadok the priest, Benai, son of Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, Shimei and Ray, and David's special guard did not join Adonijah. Adonijah then sacrificed sheep, cattle, and fattened calves at the stone of Zoheleth near En-Rogel. He invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the kings of Judah who were royal officials. But he did not invite Nathan the prophet, or Benaiah, or the special guard, or his brother Solomon. Then Nathan asked Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, "Have you not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has become king without our Lord David knowing? Now then, let me advise you how you can save your own life and the life of your son Solomon. Go into the King David and say to him, 'My lord the king, did you not swear to me, your servant? Surely Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne. Why then has Adonijah become king? While you are still there talking to the king, I will come in and confirm what you have said.' So Bathsheba went to see the aged king in his room where Abishag the Shemite was attending him. Bathsheba bowed down and knelt before the king. 'What is it you want?' the king asked. She said to him, 'My lord, you yourself swore to me, your servant, by the Lord God, Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne. But now Adonijah has become king, and you, my lord the king, do not know about it. He has sacrificed great numbers of cattle, fattened calves and sheep, and has invited all the king's sons, Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander of all the army, but he has not invited Solomon your servant. My lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you, to learn from you who will sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise, as soon as my lord the king is laid to rest with his fathers, I and my son Solomon will be treated as criminals." While she was still speaking with the king, Nathan the prophet arrived, and they told the king, "Nathan the prophet is here." So he went before the king and bowed with his face to the ground. Nathan said, "Have you, my lord the king, declared that Adonijah will be your king after you, and that he will sit on your throne? Today he has gone down and sacrificed great numbers of cattle, fattened calves, and sheep. He has invited all the king's sons, the commanders of the army, and Abiathar the priest. Right now they are eating and drinking with him and saying, 'Long live King Adonijah.' But me, your servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaiah son of Jehoiada, and your servant Solomon, he did not invite. Is this something my lord the king has done without letting his servants know who should sit on the throne of my lord the king after him?" David makes Solomon king. Then King David said, "Call in Bathsheba." So she came into the king's presence and stood before him. The king then took an oath, "As surely as Yahuwah lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble, I will surely carry out today what I swore to you by Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel. Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne in my place." Then Bathsheba bowed low with her face to the ground, and kneeling before the king said, "May my lord King David live forever." King David said, "Call in Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah son of Jehoiada." When they came before the king, he said to them, "Take your lord's servants with you, and set Solomon my son on my own mule, and take him down to Gihon. Then have Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet mount him king over Israel. Blow the trumpet and shout, 'Long live King Solomon!' Then you are to go up with him, and he is to come and sit on my throne and reign in my place. I have appointed him ruler over Israel and Judah. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, answered the king, Amen. May the Lord, the God of
So
my
be
Lord,
it.
the king, so declare it. As the Lord was with my Lord the king, so may he be with Solomon, to make his throne even greater than the throne of my Lord King David. So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah son of Jehoiada, the Karatites, and the Pelatites went down and put Solomon on King David's mule and escorted him to Gihon. Zadok the priest took the horn of oil from the sacred tent and anointed Solomon. Then they sounded the trumpet, and all the people shouted, Long live King Solomon! And all the people went up after him, playing flutes and rejoicing greatly, so that the ground shook with the sound. Adonijah and all the guests were with him, heard it as if they were finishing their feast. On hearing the sound of the trumpet, Joab asked, What's the meaning of all the noise in the city? Even as he was speaking, Jonathan, son of Abiathar the priest, arrived. Adonijah said, Come in, a worthy man like you must be bringing good news. Not at all, Jonathan answered. Our Lord King David has made Solomon king. The king has sent with him Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah son of Jehoiada, the Karatites, and the Pelatites, and they have put him on the king's wheel. And Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet have anointed him king at Gihon. From there they have gone up cheering, and the city resounds with it. That's the noise you hear. Moreover, Solomon has taken his seat on the royal throne. Also, the royal officials have come to congratulate our Lord King David, saying, May your Elohim make Solomon's name more famous than yours, and his throne greater than yours. And the king bowed in worship on his bed and said, Praise be to Yahuwah, the Father of Israel, who has allowed my eyes to see a successor on my throne today. At this, all Adonijah's guests rose in alarm and dispersed. But Adonijah, in fear of Solomon, went and took hold of the horns of the altar. Then Solomon was told, Adonijah is afraid of King Solomon and is clinging to the horns of the altar. He says, Let King Solomon swear to me today that he will not put his servant to death with the sword. Solomon replied, If he shows himself to be a worthy man, not a hair of his head will fall to the ground. But if evil is found in him, he will die. Then King Solomon sent men, and they brought him down from the altar, and Adonijah came and bowed down to King Solomon. And Solomon said, Go to your home.
Yeah. One thing I would like to point out, one of the errors of the Masoretic text, it should not say amen there. In verse 36, it should say, so be it, or may so it be, as it does in my Septuagint here. It says, answered the king and said, may it be so. So that's just one of the errors the Masoretic text started putting that pagan word amen in there everywhere. So I just wanted to mention that. Let's see here. I did have some interesting connections my mom just read. Verse 33, there seems to be a connection between King Solomon and Yahushua here. Verse 33 talks about him. The king said to him, take the servants of your master with you and make my son Solomon ride upon my mule and bring him down to the land of Gihon. Now, who else rides on a donkey? Yahushua. Okay. And it talks, there's a prophecy even in Zechariah that talks about your king, O Israel rides on the colt of a donkey. Okay. So this is why a lot of Judaism today misunderstands the idea of the Messiah and thinks that Solomon was the Messiah, because there are correlations between him and Yahushua. And so this is where they misunderstand, and they think Solomon was the fulfillment of prophecies, which would have made no sense since Zechariah is way after First Kings. Okay. Zechariah 9:9. Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you. And let me use a better version. Wow, the NIV is like so paraphrased. Let's see here. Here's Septuagint. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Proclaim it aloud, daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, the king is coming to you, righteous and a savior. He is meek, riding on a donkey and a young foal. So the colt would be a young donkey. So Zechariah 9:9, you could actually see a parallel with Yahushua from there with what we just read in First Kings. What my mom just read in First Kings chapter 1, verse 33. See here. I think other than that, there's also another connection. Let's see. I saw talks about let the king live for eternity. I thought was pretty interesting. Bathsheba makes a baraka here in verse 31. Bathsheba stopped with her face toward the earth and bowed before the king. She said, may my master, King David, live for eternity. Now, this only makes sense to me is that she's actually saying a baraka for his lineage, and maybe even a baraka for the quote unquote the King David that will be in the millennium, Yahushua. That would make sense to me. That's talking about let the King David live forever, because how is David going to live forever? How is he going to learn? He's a human right now. He's not in the resurrection. So to me, this seems like a future prophetic baraka to Yahushua's kingdom. I don't know, that maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I don't know, that kind of makes sense to me. Other than that, this is interesting, talking about proclaiming good news in verse 42. Okay. We see this other guy, the Adoniah, tried to take Solomon's throne here. And it's kind of interesting because I find it interesting, the guy that's evil, that's trying to take away the throne of King Solomon here, it has Adonai in his name. I find it kind of funny. I don't know. I find it kind of ironic that the one that's evil and trying to steal away the throne has Adonai in the first part of his name. So anyway, but I guess we could continue on here. Let's see here. Where are we going next here, guys? We are going to, I think we're going to be going to maybe Psalms next. Let's see here. Okay, let me just check. I think I'm on the wrong one here. Okay, hold on, guys. Sorry about that. All right, Judges 12 to 21. Okay, we're gonna need let's see here who hasn't read. Brother Joshua, you think you'll be able to handle Judges 12 to 21?
Yeah, he said he would.
Yeah, sure. You like to give me the long ones, don't you, Doug?
I'm sorry. Do you want to split it with someone else? You want to split it with Jeff and Hezekiah?
I was just kidding. I have no problem reading. Hold on.
Josh, where's Josh in here?
Judges 12, right? 12 to 21?
Yeah.
Okay. And the men of Ephraim assembled and passed on to the north and said to Jephthah, Therefore did you go over to fight with the children of Ammon, and did not call us to go with you? We will burn your house over you with fire. And Jephthah said to them, I and my people and the children of Ammon were very much engaged in war. And I called for you, and you did not save me out of their hand. And I saw that you were no helper, and I put my life in my hand, and passed on to the sons of Ammon. And Yahuwah delivered them into my hand, and therefore are you come up against me this day to fight with me. And Jephthah gathered all the men of Galaad and fought with Ephraim. And the men of Galaad struck Ephraim, because they that were escaped of Ephraim said, You are of Galaad, in the midst of Ephraim, and in the midst of Manasseh. And Galaad took the fords of Jordan before Ephraim, and they that were escaped of Ephraim said to them, Let us go over. And the men of Galaad said, Are you an Ephrathite? And he said, No. Then they said to him, Say now Stakis. And he did not rightly pronounce it so. And they took him and killed him at the fords of Jordan. And there fell at that time of Ephraim 42,000. And Jephthah judged Jashral 6 years. And Jephthah the Galadite died, and he was buried in his city Galaad. And after him, Abison of Bethlehem judged Jashral. And he had 30 sons and 30 daughters whom he sent forth. And he brought in 30 daughters for his sons from without. And he judged Jashral 7 years. And Abison died and was buried in Bethlehem. And after him, Elam of Zebulun judged Jashral 10 years. And Elam of Zebulun died, and was buried in Elam in the land of Zebulun. And after him, Abdon the son of Elel, the Parathonite, judged Jashral. And he had 40 sons and 30 grandsons that rode upon 70 colts. And he judged Jashral 8 years. And Abdon the son of Elel, the Parathonite, died, and was buried in Parathon in the land of Ephraim, in the mount of Amalek. And the children of Yashral yet again committed iniquity before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah delivered them into the hands of the Philistines 40 years. And there was a man of Sadah of the family of the kindred of Dan, and his name was Manoah, and his wife was barren, and bore not. And Amalek of Yahuwah appeared to the woman, and said to her, Behold, you are barren, and have not borne, yet you shall conceive a son. And now be very cautious, and drink no wine, nor strong drink, and eat no unclean thing. For behold, you are with child, and shall bring forth a son, and there shall come no razor upon his head. The child shall be a Nazarite to Aluah from the womb, and he shall begin to save Yashral from the hand of the Philistines. And the woman went in and spoke to her husband, saying, A man of Aluah came to me, and his appearance was as of an Malek of Yahuwah, very dreadful, and I did not ask him whence he was, and he did not tell me his name. And he said to me, Behold, you are with child, and shall bring forth a son, and now drink no wine, nor strong drink, and eat no unclean thing, for the child shall be Kodesh to Aluah from the womb until the day of his death. And Manoah prayed to Yahuwah and said, I pray you, O Yahuwah my Aluah, or my master, O Yahuwah my master, concerning the man of Aluah whom you sent, let him now come to us once more, and teach us what we shall do to the child about to be born. And Yahuwah heard the voice of Manoah, and the Malek of Aluah came yet again to the woman. And she sat in the field, and Manoah her husband was not with her. And the woman hasted and ran, and brought word to her husband, and said to him, Behold, the man who came in the other day to me has appeared to me. And Manoah arose and followed his wife, and came to the man, and said to him, Are you the man that spoke to the woman? And the Malek said, I am. And Manoah said, Now shall your word come to pass. What shall be the ordering of the child, and our dealings with him? And the Malek of Yahuwah said to Manoah, Of all things concerning which I spoke to the woman, she shall beware. She shall eat of nothing that comes of the vine, yielding wine. And let her not drink wine or strong liquor. And let her not eat anything unclean. All things that I have charged her she shall observe. And Manoah said to the Malek of Yahuwah, Let us detain you here, and prepare before you a kid of the goats. And the Malek of Yahuwah said to Manoah, If you should detain me, I will not eat of your bread. And if you would offer a whole burnt offering, to Yahuwah you shall offer it. For Manoah knew not that he was a Malek of Yahuwah. And Manoah said to the Malach of Yahuwah, What is your name, that when your word shall come to pass, we may glorify you? And the Malach of Yahuwah said to him, Why do you thus ask after my name, whereas it is wonderful? Manoah took a kid of the goats and its meat offering, and offered it on the rock to Yahuwah, and wrought a distinct work. And Manoah his wife were looking on. And it came to pass, when the flame went up above the altar toward Shamayim, that the Malach of Yahuwah went up in the flame, and Manoah and his wife were looking, and they fell upon their face to the earth. And the Malach appeared no more to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that this was a Malach of Yahuwah. And Manoah said to his wife, We shall surely die, because we have seen Aluah. But his wife said to him, If Yahuwah were pleased to kill us, he would not have received of our hand the whole burnt offering and the meat offering, and he would not have shown us all these things, neither would he have caused us to hear all these things. And the woman brought forth a son, and she called his name Samson, and the child grew, and Yahuwah blessed him. And the Ruach of Yahuwah began to go out with him in the camp of Dan, and between Sarah and Eshtal. So we see some oneness there, and like that part where it talks about his name being wonderful. I think we see that. I think it's Revelation. And Samson,
Isaiah, I was just gonna piggyback to help you out, brother. It's Isaiah, I think 9:6, wonderful counselor.
Okay, nice. There's Judges 14. No wait. Judges 14. And Samson went down to Timnath, and we were in 14. I'm sorry. Sorry. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he went up and told his father and his mother, and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines, and now take her to me for a wife. And his father and his mother said to him, Are there no daughters of your brethren? And is there not a woman of all my people that you go to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, Take her for me, for she is right in my eyes. And his father and his mother knew not that it was of Yahuwah that he sought to be revenged on the Philistines. And at that time the Philistines lorded it over Yasharal. And Samson and his father and his mother went down to Timnath, and he came to the vineyard of Timnath, and behold, a young lion roared at meeting him. And the Ruach of Yahuwah came powerfully upon him, and he crushed him as he would have crushed a kid of the goats. And there was nothing in his hands, and he told not his father and his mother what he had done. And they went down and spoke to the woman, and she was pleasing in the eyes of Samson. And after some time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the mouth of the lion. And he took it into his hands, and went on eating. And he went to his father and his mother, and gave to them, and they did eat. But he told them not that he took the honey out of the mouth of the lion. And his father went down to the woman, and Samson made there a banquet for 7 days, for so the young men are used to do. And it came to pass when they saw him. Let's stop this. Verse 9. Was he not supposed to be touching a dead body or a carcass?
Because it would have been unclean.
A lion's carcass?
How does that work?
It says not to touch the carcass of a pig. It doesn't say to not touch the carcass of any unclean animal.
Yeah, and I think with the dead body in general, I think the Levites had to be extra careful about touching dead bodies, I think. I'm mistaken. So I don't see any, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we go to Numbers 5, I don't think there's anything that limits them to touch just regular body. So that, especially if it's not an unclean animal, it's a clean
Okay. And they went down and spoke to the woman, and she was pleasing in the eyes of Samson. And after some time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey in the mouth of the lion. And he took it into his hands and went on eating. And he went to his father and his mother and gave to them, and they did eat. But he told them not that he took the honey out of the mouth of the lion. And his father went down to the woman, and Samson made there a banquet for 7 days, for so the young men are used to do. And it came to pass when they saw him that they took 30 guests, and they were with him. And Samson took them. I propound you a riddle. If you will indeed tell it me, and discover it within the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 sheets and 30 changes of raiment. And if you can't tell me, you shall give me 30 napkins and 30 changes of apparel. And they said to him, Propound your riddle, and we will hear it. And he said to them, Meat came forth of the eater, and sweetness out of the strong. And they could not tell the riddle for 3 days. And it came to pass on the 4th day that they said to the wife of Samson, Deceive now your husband, and let him tell you the riddle, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Did you invite us to do violence? And Samson's wife wept before him and said, You do but hate me and love me not, for the riddle which you have pronounced to the children of my people you have not told me. And Samson said to her, If I have not told it to my father and my mother, shall I tell it to you? And she wept before him the 7 days, during which their banquet lasted. And it came to pass on the 7th day that he told her, because she troubled him, and she told it to the children of her people. And the men of the city said to him on the 7th day, before sunrise, What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And Samson said to them, If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have known my riddle. And the Ruach of Yahuwah came upon him powerfully, and he went down to Escalon and destroyed the inhabitants, 30 men, and took their garments, and gave the changes of raiment to them that told the riddle. And Samson was very angry, and he went up to the house of his father. And the wife of Samson was given to one of his friends, with whom he was on terms of friendship. And it came to pass after a time, in the days of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with the kid, and said, I will go into my wife, even into the chamber. But her father did not suffer him to go in. And their father spoke, saying, I said that you did surely hate her, and I gave her to one of your friends. Is not her younger sister better than she? Let her be to you instead of her. And Samson said to them, Even for once am I guiltless with regard to the Philistines, and that I do mischief among them. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took torches, and turned tail to tail, and put a torch between 2 tails, and fastened it. And he set fire to the torches, and sent into the corn of the Philistines. And everything was burnt from the threshing floor to the standing corn, and even to the vineyard and olives. And the Philistines said these things, and they said, Samson, the son-in-law of the Tamnite, because he has taken his wife, and given her to one of his friends. And the Philistines went up and burnt her and her father's house with fire. And Samson said to them, Though you may have dealt thus with her, verily I will be avenged of you, and afterwards I will cease. And he struck them leg on thigh with a great overthrow, and went down and lived in a cave of the rock of Tam. And the Philistines went up, and encamped in Yehudah, and spread themselves abroad in Lehi. And the men of Yehudah said, Why are you come up against us? And the Philistines said, We are come up to bind Samson, and to do him as he has done to us. And the 3,000 men of Yehudah went down to the hole of the rocky Tam, and they said to Samson, Know you not that the Philistines rule over us? And what is this that you have done to us? And Samson said to them, As they did to me, so have I done to them. And they said to him, We are come down to bind you, to deliver you into the hand of the Philistines. And Samson said to them, Swear to me that you will not fall upon me yourselves. And they spoke to him, saying, No, but we will only bind you fast and deliver you into their hand, and will by no means kill you. And they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him from that rock. And they came to Lehi, and the Philistines shouted and ran to meet him. And the Ruach of Yahuwah came mightily upon him, and the ropes that were upon his arms became as tow, which is burnt with fire, and his bonds were consumed from off his hands. And he found the jawbone of a donkey that had been cast away, and he put forth his hand and took it, and struck with it 1,000 men. And Samson said, With the jawbone of a donkey I have utterly destroyed them. With the jawbone of a donkey I have struck 1,000 men. And it came to pass when he ceased speaking that he cast the jawbone out of his hand, and he called the place the lifting of the jawbone. And he was very thirsty, and wept before Yahuwah, and said, You have been well pleased to grant this great deliverance by the hand of your servant. And now shall I die for thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? And Aluwah broke open a hollow place in the jaw, And there came thence water, and he drank, and his ruach returned, and he revived. Therefore the name of the fountain was called the Well of the Invoker, which is in Lehi until this day. And he judged Joshua on the days of the Philistines 20 years. Judges 16. And Samson went to Gaza and saw there a harlot, and went in to her. And it was reporting to the Gazites, saying, Samson is come here. And they compassed him and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and they were quiet all the night, saying, Let us wait till the dawn appear, and we will kill him. And Samson slept till midnight, and rose up at midnight, and took hold of the doors of the gate of the city with the two posts, and lifted them up with the bar, and laid them on his shoulders. And he went up to the top of the mountain that is before Hebron, and laid them there. And it came to pass after this that he loved a woman in Alsarek, and her name was Delita. And the princes of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, Beguile him and see wherein his great strength is, and wherewith we shall prevail against him, and bind him to humble him, and we will give you each 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delita said to Samson, Tell me, I pray you, wherein is your great strength, and wherewith you shall be bound, that you may be humbled. And Samson said to her, If they bind me with 7 moist cords that have not been spoiled, then shall I be weak, and be as one of ordinary men. And the princess of the Philistines brought to her 7 moist cords that had not been spoiled, and she bound him with them. And the liers in wait remained with her in the chamber, and she said to him, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he broke the cords, as if anyone should break a thread of tow when it has touched the fire, and his strength was not known. And Delilah said to Samson, Behold, you have cheated me and told me lies. Now then, tell me wherewith you shall be bound. And he said to her, If they should bind me fast with new ropes, with which work has not been done, then shall I be weak, and shall be as another man. And Delilah took new ropes, and bound him with them. And the liers in wait came out of the chamber, and she said, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he broke them off as his arms like a thread. And Delilah said to Samson, Behold, you have deceived me and told me lies. Tell me, I entreat you, wherewith you may be bound. And he said to her, If you should weave the 7 locks of my head with the web, and should fasten them with the pin into the wall, then shall I be as weak as another man. And it came to pass when he was asleep that Delilah took the 7 locks of his head, and wove them with the web, and fastened them with the pin into the wall. And she said, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep, and carried away the pin of the web out of the wall. And Delilah said to Samson, How say you, I love you, when your heart is not with me? This 3rd time you have deceived me, and have not told me wherein is your great strength. And it came to pass, as she pressed him sore with her words continually, and straitened him, that his ruach failed almost to death. So that's definitely interesting. Like we see Yahuwah, using him, even though he's falling short, even though he's coming against Yahuwah, in his actions. And right here in 16, and it came to pass, as she pressed him sore with her words continually, and straitened him, that his ruach failed almost to death. And so that's Yahuwah tells us not to have anything to do with the works of darkness. And as Samson is pressing into this, we can clearly see the repercussions of that. Then he told her all his heart, and said to her, A razor has not come upon my head, because I have been a Kodesh one of Aluah from my mother's womb. If then I should be shaven, my strength will depart from me, and I shall be weak, and I shall be as all other men. So he clearly wasn't in his right mind. He's clearly, you see. But and Delilah saw that he told her all his heart, and she sent and called the princes of the Philistines, saying, Come up yet this once, for he has told me all his heart. And the chiefs of the Philistines went up to her, and brought the money in their hands. And Delilah made Samson sleep upon her knees, and she called a man, and he shaved the 7 locks of his head, and she began to humble him, and his strength departed from him. And Delilah said, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep, and said, I will go out as at former times, and shake myself. And he knew not that Yahuwah was departed from him. And the Philistines took him, and put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with fetters of brass. And he ground in the prison house, and the hair of his head began to grow as before it was shaven. And the chiefs of the Philistines met to offer a great sacrifice to their Allah Dagon and to make merry. And they said, Allah has given into our hand our enemy Samson. And the people saw him and sang praises to their Allah. For our Allah said, they have delivered into our hands our enemy who wasted our land and who multiplied our slain. And when their heart was merry, then they said, call Samson out of the prison house and let him play before us. And they called Samson out of the prison house, and he played before them. And they struck him with the palms of their hands and set him between their pillars. And Samson said to the young man that held his hand, suffer me to feel the pillars on which the house rests, and I will stay myself upon them. And the house was full of men and women, and there were all the chiefs of the Philistines, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women looking at the sports of Samson. And Samson wept before Yahuwah and said, O Yahuwah, my master, remember me, I pray you, and strengthen me, O Allah, yet this once, and I will requite one recompense to the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson took hold of the 2 pillars of the house on which the house stood, and leaned on them, and laid hold of one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson said, let my wife perish with the Philistines. And he bowed himself mightily, and the house fell upon the princes and upon all the people that were in it. And the dead whom Samson killed in his death were more than those whom he killed in his life. And his brethren and his father's house went down, and they took him, and they went up and buried him between Sarah and Eshtaol in the sepulchre of his father Manoah. And he judged Yashral 20 years. That part where it talks about him not knowing that Yahuwah departed from him, we see that Yahuwah definitely punished him, disciplined him for his sin, but it wasn't instantaneous, it wasn't immediate, so he continued to progress in his sin, believing, that Yahuwah would continue to be with him, and in that moment that he wasn't, it definitely seemed like a shocker to him. And Judges 17, and there was a man of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Micaiah, and he said to his mother, the 1,100 pieces of silver which you took of yourself, and about which you cursed me and spoke in my ears, behold, the silver was with me. I took it. And his mother said, blessed be my son of Yahuwah. And he restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, I had wholly consecrated the money to Yahuwah out of my hand for my son, to make a graven and a molten image, and now I will restore it to you. But he returned the silver to his mother, and his mother took 200 pieces of silver and gave them to a silversmith. And he made it a graven and molten image, and it was in the house of Micaiah. And the house of Micaiah was to him the house of Allah, and he made an ephod and teraphim, and he consecrated one of his sons, and he became to him a priest. And in those days there was no king in Yashral. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And there was a young man in Bethlehem of the tribe of Yehudah, and he was a Levite, and he was sojourning there. And the man departed from Bethlehem, the city of Yehudah, to sojourn in whatever place he might find. And he came as far as Mount Ephraim, and to the house of Micaiah to accomplish his journey. And Micaiah said to him, whence come you? And he said to him, I am a Levite of Bethlehem, Yehudah, and I go to sojourn in any place I may find. And Micaiah said to him, dwell with me and be to me a father and a priest, and I will give you 10 pieces of silver by the year, and a change of raiment, and your living. And the Levite went and began to dwell with the man, and the young man was to him as one of his sons. And Micaiah consecrated the Levite, and he became to him a priest, and he was in the house of Micaiah. And Micaiah said to him, now I know that Yahuwah will do me good, because the Levite has become my priest.
10 shekels for a year for the priest, but she just put 200 on a molten image. That literally 10 times what he's going to make in a year.
Judges 18. In those days there was no king in Yashral, and in those days the tribe of Dan sought for itself an inheritance to inhabit, because no inheritance had fallen to it until that day in the midst of the tribes of the children of Yashral. And the sons of Dan sent from their families 5 men of valor, from Sarah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and search it. And they said to them, go and search out the land. And they came as far as the mount of Ephraim to the house of Micaiah, and they lodged there. and the house of Micaiah, and they recognized the voice of the young man, the Levite, and turned in there and said to him, Who brought you in hither, and what are you in this place, and what have you here? And he said to them, Thus and thus did Micaiah to me, and he hired me, and I became his priest. And they said to me, Inquire now of Allah, and we shall know whether our way will prosper on which we are going. And the priest said to them, Go in peace. Your journey on which you go is before Yahuwah. Then the 5 men left and came to Laish and saw the people who were in their midst, of it, dwelling securely at ease is the manner of the Sidonians, and there is no one perverting or shaming a matter in the land, no heir extorting treasures. And they are far from the Sidonians, and they have no intercourse with anyone. And the 5 men came to their brethren, to Sarah and to Estaol, and said to their brethren, Why sit you here idle? And they said, Arise, and let's go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good, yet you are still. Delay not to go and to enter and possess the land. And whenever you shall go, you shall come in upon a people secure, and the land is extensive, for Allah has given it into your hand, a place where there is no lack of anything that the earth affords. And there departed thence with the families of Dan from Sadah and from Estaol 600 men girded with weapons of war. And they went up and encamped in Kiriath-Jearim in Yehuda. Therefore it was called in that place the camp of Dan until this day. Behold, it is behind Kiriath-Jearim. And they went on thence to the mount of Ephraim and came to the house of Micaiah. And the 5 men who went to spy out the land of Lysah answered and said to their brethren, You know that there is in this place an ephod and teraphim, and a graven and a molten image, and now consider what you shall do. And they turned aside there, and went into the house of the young man, the Levite, even into the house of Micaiah, and asked him how he was. And the 600 men of the sons of Dan, who were girded with their weapons of war, stood by the door of the gate. And the 5 men who went to spy out the land went up and entered into the house of Micaiah, and the priests stood. And they took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. And the priest said to them, What are you doing? And they said to him, Be silent, lay your hand upon your mouth, and come with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for you to be the priest of the house of one man, or to be the priest of a tribe, and a house for a family of Yasharol? And the heart of the priest was glad. And he took the ephod, and the teraphim, and the graven image, and the molten image, and went in the midst of the people. So they turned and departed, and put their children and their property and their baggage before them. They went some distance from the house of Micaiah, and behold, Micaiah and the men in the houses near Micaiah's house cried out and overtook the children of Dan. And the children of Dan turned their faces and said to Micaiah, What is the matter with you that you have cried out? And Micaiah said, Because you have taken my graven image which I made, and my priest, and are gone. And what have I remaining? And what is this that you say to me? Why cry you? And the children of Dan said to him, Don't let your voice be heard with us, lest angry men run upon you, and take away your life and the lives of your house. And the children of Dan went their way, and Micaiah saw that they were stronger than himself, and he returned to his house. And the children of Dan took what Micaiah had made, and the priest that he had, and they came to Lysah, to a people quiet and secure. And they struck them with the edge of the sword, and burnt the city with fire, and there was no deliverer, because the city is far from the Sidonians, and they have no intercourse with men. And it is in the valley of the house of Rahab, and they built the city and lived in it. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born to Yasharol. And the name of the city was Ulamais before. And the children of Dan set up the graven image for themselves. And Jonathan, son of Gershon, son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan to the time of the carrying away of the nation. And they set up for themselves the graven image which Micaiah made all the days that the house of Allah was in Shiloh. And it was in those days. So I'm not sure if that's supposed to be Salem or Shiloh. Some read Shiloh and some read Salem. The house of Allah was in.
Almost the same word.
They mean the same thing.
One's rest, one's peace. It's almost the same word.
Okay.
Right, same parent word.
The house of Allah was in Salem, and it was so in those days that there was no king in Yasharol. And there was a Levite sojourning in the sides of Mount Ephraim, and he took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem, Yehuda, and his concubine departed from him, and went away from him to the house of her father to Bethlehem, Yehuda, and she was there 4 months. And her husband rose up and went after her to speak kindly to her, to recover her to himself. And he had his young man with him and a pair of donkeys, and she brought him into the house of her father. And the father of the damsel saw him and was well pleased to meet him. And his father-in-law, the father of the damsel, constrained him. And he stayed with him for 3 days. And they ate and drank and lodged there. And it came to pass on the 4th day that they rose early and stood up to depart. And the father of the damsel said to his son-in-law, strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and afterwards you shall go. So they two sat down together and ate and drank. And the father of the damsel said to her husband, tarry now the night, and let your heart be merry. And the man rose up to depart. But his father-in-law constrained him, and he stayed and lodged there. And he rose early in the morning on the 5th day to depart. And the father of the damsel said, strengthen now your heart, and quit yourself as a soldier till the day decline. And the two ate. And the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his young man. But his father-in-law, the father of the damsel, said to him, behold, now the day has declined toward evening. Lodge here, and let your heart rejoice, and you shall rise early tomorrow for your journey, and you shall go to your habitation. But the man would not lodge there, but he arose and departed, and came to the part opposite Jabus. This is Jerusalem. And there was with him a pair of donkeys saddled, and his concubine was with him. And they came as far as Jabus, and the day had far advanced. And the young man said to his master, come, I pray you, and let us turn aside to the city of the Jebusites, and let us lodge in it. And his master said to him, we will not turn aside to a strange city where there is not one of the children of Yasharal, but we will pass on as far as Gaba. And he said to his young man, come, and let us draw near to one of the places, and we will lodge in Gaba or Ramah. And they passed by and went on, and the sun went down upon them near to Gaba, which is in Benjamin. And they turned aside thence to go in to lodge in Gaba. And they went in and sat down in the street of the city. And there was no one who conducted them into a house to lodge. And behold, an old man came out of the field from his work in the evening. And the man was of Mount Ephraim, and he sojourned in Gaba, and the men of the place were sons of Benjamin. And he lifted up his eyes and saw a traveler in the street of the city. And the old man said to him, whither go you, and whence come you? And he said to him, we are passing by from Bethlehem Yehuda to the sides of Mount Ephraim. I am from thence, and I went on as far as Bethlehem Yehuda, and I am going home, and there is no man to take me into his house. Yet is there straw and food for our donkeys, and bread and wine for me and my handmaid, and the young man with your servants. There is no lack of anything. That's pretty amazing right there. They're out in the street, they're traveling. I'm pretty sure it's probably cold, yet he says there is no lack of anything, and that's pretty amazing. And the old man said, peace be to you, only be every lack of year upon me, only do you by no means lodge in the street. And he brought him into his house, and made room for his donkeys, and they washed their feet, and ate and drank. And they were conforming their heart, when, behold, the men of the city, sons of transgressors, compassed the house, knocking at the door. And they spoke to the old man, the owner of the house, saying, break out the man who came into your house, that we may know him. And the master of the house came out to them, and said, no, brethren, do not you wrong, I pray you, after this man has come into my house, do not you this folly. Behold, my daughter a virgin, and the man's concubine. I will bring them out, and humble you them, and do to them that which is good in your eyes. But to this man do not this folly. But the men would not consent to listen to him. So the man laid hold of his concubine, and brought her out to them. And they knew her, and abused her all night till the morning, and let her go when the morning dawned. And the woman came toward morning, and fell down at the door of the house where her husband was, until it was light. And her husband rose up in the morning, and opened the doors of the house, and went forth to go on his journey. And behold, the woman, his concubine, had fallen down by the doors of the house, and her hands were on the threshold. And he said to her, rise, and let us go. And she answered not, for she was dead. And he took her upon his donkey, and went to his place. And he took his sword, and laid hold of his concubine, and divided her in 12 parts, and sent them to every coast of Yasharal. And it was so that every one who saw it said, such a day as this has not happened, nor has been seen from the day of the going up the children of Yasharal out of the land of Mitzrayim until this day. Take you counsel concerning it, and speak. So this is almost exactly what happened in Sodom. And all the children of Yasharal went out, and all the congregation was gathered as one man from Dan even to Beersheba, uh, Beersheba, and in the land of Galaad to the master at Mesepha, or to Yahuwah at Mesepha. And all the tribes of Yasharal stood before Yahuwah in the assembly of the people of Aluah, 400,000 footmen that drew sword. And the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Yasharal were gone up to Mesepha, and the children of Yasharal came and said, "Tell us, where did this wickedness take place?" And the Levite, the husband of the woman that was slain, answered and said, "I and my concubine went to Gaba of Benjamin to lodge, and the men of Gaba rose up against me, encompassed the house by night against me. They wished to kill me, and they have humbled my concubine, and she is dead. And I laid hold of my concubine, and divided her in pieces, and sent the parts into every coast of the inheritance of the children of Yasharal, for they have wrought lewdness and abominations in Yasharal. Behold, all you are children of Yasharal, and consider and take counsel here among yourselves." And all the people rose up as one man, saying, "No one of us shall return to his tent, and no one of us shall return to his house. And now this is the thing which shall be done in Gaba. We'll go up against it by lot. Moreover, we will take 10 men for 100 for all the tribes of Yasharal, and 100 for 1,000, and 1,000 for 10,000, to take provision to cause them to come to Gaba of Benjamin, to do to it according to all the abomination which they wrought in Yasharal." And all the men of Yasharal were gathered to the city as one man. And the tribes of Yasharal sent men to the whole tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What is this wickedness that has been wrought among you? Now then, give up the men, the sons of transgressors that are in Gaba, and we will put them to death, and purge out wickedness from Yasharal." Same thing that he did to Sodom. The children of Benjamin consented not to listen to the voice of their brethren, the children of Yasharal, and the children of Benjamin were gathered from their cities to Gaba to go forth to fight with the children of Yasharal, and the children of Benjamin from their cities were numbered in that day 23,000, every man drawing a sword, besides the inhabitants of Gaba, who were numbered 700 chosen men of all the people, able to use both hands alike. All these could sling with stones at a hair and not miss. And the men of Yasharal, exclusive of Benjamin, were numbered 400,000 men that drew sword. All these were men of war. And they arose and went up to Bethel, and inquired of Aluah. And the children of Yasharal said, "Who shall go up for us first to fight with the children of Benjamin?" And the Lord and Yahuwah said, "Yehudah shall go up first as leader." And the children of Yasharal rose up in the morning and encamped against Gaba. And they went all the men of Yasharal to fight with Benjamin, and engaged with them at Gaba. And the sons of Benjamin went forth from Gaba, and they destroyed in Yasharal on that day 22,000 men down to the ground. And the men of Yasharal strengthened themselves, and again engaged in battle in the place where they had engaged on the first day. And the children of Yasharal went up and wept before Yahuwah till evening, and inquired of Yahuwah, saying, "Shall we again draw near to battle with our brethren, the children of Benjamin?" And Yahuwah said, "Go up against them." So we see them coming together, coming against Benjamin, all as one body, as one, as one body, and even as they fall, even as they fail, they still come before Yahuwah. So even victory isn't always immediate. We're definitely gonna have some failures at times. We got to get back up. And the children of Yasharal advanced against the children of Benjamin on the second day. And the children of Benjamin went forth to meet them from Gaba on the second day, and destroyed of the children of Yasharal yet further 18,000 men down to the ground. All these drew sword. And the children of Yasharal and all the people went up and came to Bethel, and they wept and sat there before Yahuwah. And they fasted on that day until evening, and offered whole burnt offerings and perfect sacrifices before Yahuwah. So you see him crying out just a little bit more this time. For the ark of Yahuwah, Aluah, was there in those days, and Phinehas the son of Eleazar the son of Aaron stood before it in those days. And the children of Yasharal inquired of Yahuwah, saying, "Shall we yet again go forth to fight with our brethren, the sons of Benjamin?" And Yahuwah said, "Go up tomorrow, I will give them into your hands." And the children of Yasharal set an ambush against Gaba round about it. And the children of Yasharal went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day, and arrayed themselves against Gaba as before. And the children of Benjamin went out to meet the people, and were all drawn out of the city. So you see them doing the same thing that I think it was the city of Ai. Yeah. And began to strike and kill the people as before in the roads, whereof one goes up to Bethel, and one to Gaba in the field, about 30 men of Yasharal. And the children of Benjamin said, They fall before us as at the first. But the children of Yasharal said, Let us flee, and draw them out from the city into the roads. And they did so. And all the men rose up out of their places and engaged in Baal Tamar, and the liars in wait of Yasharal advanced from the place from Moragabe. And there came over against Gaba 10,000 chosen men out of all Yasharal, and the fight was severe, and they knew not that evil was come upon them. And Yahuwah struck Benjamin before the children of Yasharal, and the children of Yasharal destroyed of Benjamin in that day 125,000 men. All these drew sword. And the children of Benjamin saw that they were struck. And the men of Yasharal gave place to Benjamin, because they trusted in the ambuscade which they had prepared against Gaba. And when they retreated, when the liars in wait rose up, and they moved toward Gaba, and the whole ambush came forth, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword. And the children of Yasharal had a signal of battle with the liars in wait, that they should send up a signal of smoke from the city. And the children of Yasharal saw that the liars in wait had seized in Gaba, and they stood in line of battle. And Benjamin began to strike down wounded ones among the men of Yasharal, about 30 men. For they said, Surely they fall again before us, as in the first battle. And the signal went up increasingly over the city as a pillar of smoke. And Benjamin looked behind him, and behold, the destruction of the city went up to Shamaim. And the men of Yasharal turned back, and the men of Benjamin hasted, because they saw that evil had come upon them. And they turned away of the wilderness from before the children of Yasharal and fled. But the battle overtook them, and they from the cities destroyed them in the midst of them. And they cut down Benjamin and pursued him from Nua closely till they came opposite Gaba on the east. And there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men, all there were men of might. And the rest turned and fled to the wilderness, to the rock of Rimmon. And the children of Yasharal picked off of them 5,000 men, and the children of Yasharal went down after them as far as Gedan. And they struck at them 2,000 men. And all that fell of Benjamin were 25,000 men that drew sword in that day. All these were men of might. And the rest turned and fled to the wilderness, to the rock of Rimmon, even 600 men, and they sojourned 4 months in the rock of Rimmon. And the children of Yasharal returned to the children of Benjamin, and struck them with the edge of the sword, from the city of Methla, even to the cattle, and everything that was found in all the cities, and they burnt with fire the cities they found. Now the children of Yasharal swore in Mesephe, saying, No man of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin for a wife. Just want to pause right here. Judges 21. I think it's just very interesting, that Yahuwah, he knows the end from the beginning, and he knew that Benjamin was gonna rebel, and that they were gonna be pretty much almost entirely wiped out. And even in them swearing this oath right here, he still made a way to repopulate Benjamin, and it's just incredible the way that he works. Now the children of Yasharal swore in Mesephath, saying, No man of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin for a wife. And the people came to Bethel and sat there until evening before Aluah, and they lifted up their voice and wept with a great weeping, and said, Therefore, O Yahuwah Aluah of Yasharal, has this come to pass that today one tribe should be counted as missing from Yasharal? And it came to pass on the morrow that the people rose up early and built there an altar and offered up whole burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the children of Yasharal said, Who of all the tribes of Yasharal went not up in the congregation to Yahuwah? For there was a great oath concerning those who went not up to Yahuwah to Mesephath, saying, He shall surely be put to death. And the children of Yasharal relented toward Benjamin their brother, and said, Today one tribe is cut off from Yasharal. What shall we do for wives, the rest that remain? Whereas we have sworn by Yahuwah not to give them of our daughters for wives. And they said, One man is there of the tribes of Yasharal who went not up to Yahuwah to Mesephath. And behold, no man came to the camp from Jabes Galaad to the assembly. And the people were numbered, and there was not there a man from the inhabitants of Jabes Galaad. And the congregation sent there 12,000 men of the strongest, and they charged them, saying, Go you and strike the inhabitants of Jabes Galaad with the edge of the sword. And this you shall do. Every male and every woman that had known the lying with man you shall devote to destruction, but the virgins you shall save alive. And they did so. So I think that's definitely interesting. The inhabitants of Jabes Galahad, they didn't participate in the sin that they destroyed. They attacked Benjamin for, but they didn't come against it either. They just kind of remained docile against it, if you will. And for that they were destroyed and struck with the edge of the sword. And this shall you do, every male and every woman that has known the lying with man you shall devote to destruction, but the virgins you shall save alive. And they did so. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabes Galahad 400 young virgins who had not known man by lying with him. And they brought them to Salem in the land of Canaan. And all the congregation sent and spoke to the children of Benjamin in the rock Rimmon, and invited them to make peace. And Benjamin returned to the children of Yashruel at that time. And the children of Yashruel gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the daughters of Jabes Galahad, and they were content. And the people relented for Benjamin, because Yahuwah had made a breach in the tribes of Yashruel. And the elders of the congregation said, What shall we do for wives for them that remain? For the women have been destroyed out of Benjamin. And they said, An inheritance of them that are escaped of Benjamin, and so a tribe shall not be destroyed out of Yashruel. For we shall not be able to give them wives of our daughters, because we swore among the children of Yashruel, saying, Cursed is he that gives a wife to Benjamin. And they said, Behold, now there is a feast of Yahuwah from year to year in Salem, which is on the north of Bethel, eastward on the way that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, and from the south of Lebonah. And they charged the children of Benjamin, saying, Go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and you shall see and behold, that there come out the daughters of the inhabitants of Salem to dance in dances, and you shall go out of the vineyards and seize for yourselves every man a wife of the daughters of Salem, and go you into the land of Benjamin. And it shall come to pass, when their fathers or their brethren come to dispute with us, that we will say to them, Grant them freely to us, for we have not taken every man his wife in the battle, because you did not give to them according to the occasion you transgressed. Give me a second. That's kind of hard to read. And they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, Go lie in wait in the vineyards, and watch, and see, when the daughters of Shiloh come out to perform their dances, then you shall come out from the vineyards, and every man catch a wife for himself from the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. Verse 22, And it shall be, when their fathers or their brothers come to us to complain, that we shall say to them, Favor us with them, because we did not take a wife for any of them in battle, neither have you given them to them, making yourselves guilty of your oath. 23, And the children of Benjamin did so, and took enough wives for their number from those who danced, whom they caught. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and they rebuilt the cities and dwelt in them. 24, And the children of Yashua went from there at that time, each one to his tribe and clan, and they went from there, each one to his inheritance. 25, In those days there was no sovereign in Yashua. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. That's it. Good job.
That was a lie.
Great job, brother. Great job. I'm sorry for giving you so much. That was a great job.
It was good. It was definitely I was definitely getting a lot from it reading it. So great job.
He is great at reading.
Yeah, he is. I like his reading voice. He sounds good. On our brother Joshua has a great audio voice. I came across something interesting when you were reading about Samson and Delilah in the earlier chapters. If I may, I want to read from one of the books that was originally in our older canons of the Bible, Sirach, Ecclesiasticus, and it might give us an answer and kind of, add on to what you were talking about with Samson and Delilah, what happened to him, trusting in a foreign woman that's idol worshiper and all that. And this is a lesson to us men. This is from Ecclesiasticus chapter 9, verse 8. If you don't have a Catholic Bible or a King James, you might not be able to read along, but it says here, let me just open it up in my sword here. I should have the LXX with Apocrypha on my sword. Hold on a second, guys. I'm trying to do the shared screen here. Shared screen, start now. Let's see here. My sword. Go to LXX 2012. And I think I actually have to go to the book section. It's very tricky how you have to go to the Apocrypha here. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Nope, we don't want Tobit. We want Sirach. Hold on, sorry about this, guys. I thought it was more easy to navigate than this. All right, let's see here. Sirach. Wonder why it's giving me so much trouble. Oh, that's why. Because I'm on the Catholic one. That's why. Let's see here. There should be a way. Here we go. Oh, it is listed as Ecclesiasticus. Okay, that's why I was having so much trouble. Okay, so Ecclesiasticus, also known as the Book of Sirach in the King James Apocrypha, 1611, chapter 9, verse 8. Turn away your eye from a beautiful woman and look not upon another's beauty, for many, meaning many men, have been deceived by the beauty of a woman. For herewith love is kindled as a fire. So I just thought it would be a good reference just to kind of add to what Brother Joshua was reading from before. Just kind of as a good warning to us brothers. Be very careful. And not to say that it's not okay to be attracted to a woman, but sometimes the beauty of a woman can deceive us many times. So anyway, I have some other notes here from what Brother Joshua was reading. I took note of Dagon here in chapter 16, verse 23. Okay, so these people, these Philistines, were worshipers of Dagon, which later became what's the Babylonian name they would use, Mom? Marduk, right? Okay, so yeah, I think it's Marduk. So Dagon became known as Marduk to the Babylonians in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. So all these foreign nations they were not supposed to marry into, and I mean it goes by saying they're not supposed to take a Philistine wife. I mean, what they were, what the Philistines were, and the fact they're idol worshippers, I think that goes without saying. Not to be unequally yoked. Okay, so we see his problems. He's fell for a beautiful foreign Gentile woman who's not a believer, and she deceived him. So that's why I brought up Sirach chapter 9, verse 8. Let's see here. So Judges 16:23 talks about that. I found it interesting too in Judges 13:11, if I'm not mistaken here. So let's go to Judges 13:11. In my version, in the Septuagint, it mentions that the angel of Yahuwah says, I am. And I thought it was interesting the way it's worded or phrased in adding to Brother Joshua's point earlier about the Yahusha being the angel of Yahuwah. Okay. Yeah. And Manoah arose and followed his wife and came to the man and said to him, Are you the man that spoke to the woman? And the angel said, I am. Now, those of us that believe in the Brit Hadashah, aka the New Testament, will know how significant that is. That this being, this angel of Yahuwah, is saying, I am. There's only one other person in Scripture that refers to himself as the I am, the Asher Ahia. Okay, so find that pretty interesting. So Let's see here. And to add to Brother Joshua's point about the doing right in their own eyes, we see a recurrent themes in the chapters Brother Joshua read. What is the recurring problem here with Yasharal and Israel? And what is their really problem is that they keep wanting to do things that's right in their own eyes, right? That's the problem. So you can find that in Judges 17:6. Judges 14 verse 3. It's Yahuwah keeps reiterating this for a reason. Okay, something to keep track of. And I have one more cross reference I took a note of was let's see here. We're gonna go to back to the my sword here. We're gonna go to Judges 13:18. So 13:18 and the angel of Yahuwah said to him, "Why do you thus ask after my name, whereas it is wonderful?" And again, Brother Joshua, brought the correlation there earlier, and I helped him out with Isaiah 9:6. Okay, wonderful counselor, strong, all, everlasting Father. So that seems to be very, very pertinent, important that this angel of Yahuwah is saying, he calls himself the I am, 7 verses earlier in the same chapter. So again, is this just a regular angel, or is this the Father, or is this the Son? I'll let you decide on that, but I'm pretty convinced that's Yahushua speaking in Malach form. Okay. All right. And the fact that it says a man looked like an angel, a man came to her who looked like an angel, how it talks about the transfiguration in the New Testament and all that. Okay. So anyway. All right, we can move on. And I just want to thank Brother Joshua again. He did a great, great, great job on that reading. Okay, let's see here. So now we're going to continue here and see where we're going next. I think what we're going to do is we're going to end the live because this was a pretty long one continuous recording. We're going to stop the live and do a new recording. I'm going to see. We might take a break, guys, because I know we've been on for a while. So I'll just see how everyone's feeling off the record, and if we're ready to jump back on, we'll jump back on. If not, we might take a half an hour break. So just